Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Today it's a beautiful yet rainy day here in Montreal. I'm out here on Saint Laurent. I'm going to visit my good old friend Maysr. He's a local legend, a DJ, a graffiti artist, entrepreneur, bird feeder, a very interesting person. So I hope you'll enjoy our conversation together. Woo!
While the world is burning, got to make amends. Walk on the sunny side with a positive lens. Talks about passion between the women and the men. Chris Dyer and his creative friends. Darling, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Mesa, sharper than a razor.
That's amazing. Good. Life's good, man.
I used to love that CD with all those shout outs.
Yeah.
That, so that always stuck with me. It's still one of my favorite, dance hall reggae mixes.
Yeah, wow. That's old, man. That's like a 15-year-old mix or something?
Yeah, something like that.
That's crazy.
I might have gotten it at Under Pressure one year.
Yeah.
How long have we known each other?
I don't know. I don't know. 20 years? When did you come to Montreal?
I've been in Montreal for 21 years, but from my recollection, I first became aware of your DJing and meeting you at Luva Lounge or Lola Lounge? The name changed at one point.
Yeah, Lola Lounge, Luba Lounge.
Yeah.
Okay, so, Luba, yeah.
Right.
On Blurry, the little one?
Right.
Yeah, that was before my son was born. So that was, yes, I'd say 17 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. I was having a solo show there, and you were like the reggae DJ. Like, I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah, we had a Tuesday night there. Yeah.
And then because I liked what you were doing, I remember I hired you to DJ at the Satori Movement skate premiere once too.
Oh wow! Whoa, crazy! When, man?
That was around that time, 2005, 2006, when I was kind of like trying to bring that skate brand to Montreal.
Crazy.
Phil Grisset was there, I think.
Yeah.
I think there might be a picture of you, me, and Phil Grisset, free dreadlocks.
That's amazing.
He still got the dreads. You still got the dreads. I'm fucking a bald head now. Sold out to Babylon.
No, I envy you. I envy you in a sense. That's one attachment that, man, you know what's funny? I've always said that, like, oh, I could cut my hair anytime. Like, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I would have been like, no, like I'm really attached to my hair. This can take a lot of work. But then in the last few years, I'm like, man, I'm attached, but not attached. You know what I mean? Like, and just recently, like my hair touches the floor. It's past the floor. I had dreadlocks that were 8 feet long, taller than me.
How many years?
27 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I just recently, cut some of my hair off like this much so it doesn't touch the floor anymore. Right. And there was one dread that I cut like 2 feet off because it was 2 feet hanging on the It was the hugest thing to me. Like, I cried. My son was with me. I was like, yo, you got to come here. Like, I need to be with you right now.
Yeah, this is no little business.
No, it wasn't. And I cut it and I cried. And I'm like, yo, I'm way more attached to such a superficial thing like hair than I thought I was.
But it's still like your energy to some degree. It's just the past. It's some kind of crystallization of your body that you did hold on for many decades.
Yeah.
And it's okay, I guess, when you cut it out, to honor it, to feel it, and to let it go little by little at the rate that you need, I guess.
Yeah. I don't think it should be, though. You know what I mean? Like, everything you say is valid, 100%. but why should we be attached to this thing that's crystallization and that's growing from our body? Like, why? It's not functional. You know, it's not like cutting my hand off. That would be brutal. You know, I can't do art. I can't even chop a carrot, you know, like, so I understand the attachment, but I don't think I should hold it so sacred.
The attachment or the hair?
Both.
Like, so do you want to cut your hair?
Well, when I see you with no hair, I'm slightly envious because it's like, because I realized that, wow, I really didn't think that this podcast would take up the first 6 minutes of talking about hair.
I didn't expect it neither, but you know, something we did have in common was we were two big dreadheads in Montreal.
Yeah.
I've had people yell at me on the street, yo, Maysr, and I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm not Maysr.
That's hilarious. Other people have told me the same thing. But I just, I don't know. It scares. Basically, what I'm trying to say is when I cut that one dreadlock a few months ago, and I was crying, and so much emotion came out. I was like, it scared me because I'm like, I have a lot more attachment issues than I thought I did. One to hair, but maybe to other things.
Right.
Maybe to other things
Or
that I
just the image. I think hair, at least to me, hair is image. Like, like yes, I was attached. And when I looked at it, and ayahuasca many times told me, like, just cut it off. And then the next morning I'd be all like, why? I got nothing to prove to anyone. I know I'm not, you know, superficial, or this is not me. Like, I know that. I don't have to cut it off to prove my own ego that I'm spiritually enough. But then I did a really deep 40th ceremony, and it was like, dude, you really gotta, like, you're trying to liberate yourself from what other people think, superficiality, observing yourself through the eyes of others. Cut that thing to remind yourself every single day that this shit ain't you. You know, like, it doesn't matter if you're old or cool looking or young and beautiful or ugly. You are fucking awesome and beautiful because of what's inside, and you really gotta live from that inside and then out, you know? And if you can do that with dreads, do it. But, like, I think part of your process is to, like, just fucking break that that energy attachment right now.
Like, I couldn't even imagine, like, I say I couldn't even imagine shaving my beard off, but I could, and maybe it would be fine. But after cutting that one dreadlock, it starts making me question myself a little bit. Like, maybe I just figured, I think maybe I'm more attached to things than I thought I was. But that's okay. It's okay to get those little jabs, because then it forces you to work on yourself more. Because we come into once you make this decision, like, oh, I'm not attached to something, then you don't explore it anymore because you made that decision. You know, you're like, I'm good. But then you don't explore. So sometimes you need to force yourself into exploring yourself deeper.
Putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, you know, as non-enjoyable as it is, it helps your evolution and to find your strength through those struggles. When I cut it once again, and you know, I hope it doesn't matter that we talk about hair so much, but it was a spiritual thing, and I, like, you know, I was like, oh my God, like, my head is not perfect, it's full of bumps, and there was all these holes from decades of dreads. So, like, it's not like I was balding, but it just was the weirdest patterns of holes all over the place, and I'm like, fuck, it just looked like I got attacked by a cat and shit. That's why, like, I did the tattoo both for protection, but also to kind of, like, even out the mismatch. But actually the hair's starting to grow again. I'm like,
it'll come back.
Oh, it's a little bit fuzzy now in the middle. Great. Okay, I'm regenerating. I'm just gonna shave it for at least a year.
Well, I like the tattoo, and maybe I don't know. Maybe one day I'll be there.
Did your hairline suffer from the weight?
My hairline, well, I don't know if it's from the weight or just age, but my hairline has gone back a little bit. I look at pictures of me from, like, 20 years ago, I'm like, yo, it's straight, and now it's more of a little bit of a curve. I don't know. But
So why do you have dreads? Are you like Rasta?
Yeah, well-
what is Rasta anyways to you?
Well, when I was young, I grew up in a very densely Jamaican populated area of Montreal at the time. I grew up in NDG in the 90s.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great
so
neighborhood.
yeah, great neighborhood. I love NDG.
Yeah, me too.
It's very diverse and rich in culture, especially in the 90s, and there were a lot of Jamaican people there. And I ended up hanging out with a lot of Rastas and them being in my vicinity, and Jamaican people in general. Along with other people, I would hang out with all types of people. But when I was about 14, I met some Rastas who basically it had it was the first time I ever heard about God and took somebody seriously. I think because I was a little impressionable back then as a 14-year-old kid, and when I saw some people who I thought were just interesting, tell me their interest about God, I was like, okay, hold on, this isn't some old Italian lady talking to me about Jesus. You know, there's a lot of Italian ladies in NDG also when I grew up, because that wouldn't interest me. Jewish religion, people talking to like Muslim, all this stuff.
Seems so dogmatic and structural.
Yeah, exactly. And that didn't interest me. You think of a church and Jesus, and since you're a kid, you see all this. And like, I didn't grow up in Jamaica. I grew up in Montreal, so I didn't see. So my religion, all the religious images that I saw when I was a kid was the church, like, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old. As a kid, you see church and Jesus and all these things. So it doesn't, you're kind of jaded. At one point, you're like, oh, that's just that shit that I don't care about.
Meanwhile, the Rastas are puffing joints in the parking lot.
Exactly, in the park, actually. Literally, that's exactly it. And I
Girard?
started, no, not Girard at the time. I lived below the tracks, Oxford Park.
Okay, go
But Girard Park, I spent tons of time as a teen up there. But in my early teens, Oxford Park, there were a lot of soccer games between the Italians and the Jamaicans.
Okay.
So we'd go see the soccer games, and tons of Jamaicans out there.
I lived in Oxford and Sherbrooke for
Oh, cool.
3 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right
really
across
loved
from Girard Park. Yeah. So I met some Rastas, and they started telling me about, God, okay? But relating God to Haile Selassie. And I was like, hold on, wait. Like, what are you talking about? And some of them, fuck, my hair's falling apart. Speaking of hair, so basically I was like, hold on, explain this to me now, about Haile Selassie being God. Because for the most part, a lot of Rastas, they believe that Haile Selassie was God, or the second coming of Christ, right? So that sparked my interest, and I was like, whoa, this is interesting. And I started looking into this myself. This is pre-internet, so I was reading a lot of books, I was talking to a lot of people, and as an impressionable 15-year-old at this point, I was like, okay, so I guess Haile Selassie is God, for the reasons that these people are telling me that. And a lot of it is biblical references, and so I started exploring that. And long story short, throughout my studies of Rastafari, I've come to the conclusion that I don't think Haile Selassie is God any more than me or you are God, right? And I know some Rastas who say that no, he's not God at all, he's more of a prophet. I know some Rastas who say no, he is God, like whether the second coming of Jesus or just God in human flesh, he is God. So if you see around my house, I have pictures of Haile Selassie all over. I have Ethiopian colors all over. It's very sacred to my heart, because if it wasn't for Haile Selassie and Rastafari, I wouldn't have found God. You know, so that was my first step in into spirituality. So I hold it very sacred.
Beautiful. Do you still consider yourself Rasta today, even if it's not a religion, but maybe like some kind of like vibration or naturality path?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, beautiful. I say 100%, but not in the sense that
you're 100% this thing.
Exactly. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like I open myself to everything, man. If I didn't look into if I didn't look into other religions that I was finally open to through Rastafari, because Rastafari made me open to the concept of God in my teens and looking into other things. Well, I guess I was more focused on Rastafari in my teens and 20s, but then later started opening up and being less confined by one lifestyle, which is how everybody, I think, should be. I think they should be open to everything.
Yeah, like you can choose a box, but you don't have to be confined by the box. You can go and peek into other people's boxes and be like, hey, like the wrapper of your box is different, but the essence is always the same.
Yeah.
Like God is God, and it permeates everything.
Yeah.
And we're all just trying to go back to source.
Yeah.
And as humans, we like art. We create art and culture and expressions of how we can envision God, and they're all beautiful, but we see what resonates more with our individuality.
Yeah. Like you say, you could be in the box, but like keep the flaps open, you know, like be accepted to other things. And like I've discovered really cool stuff with like Hinduism and like just like other concepts. Like even you know, Satanism. You know, like there's really interesting concepts, and like to some people that may be like, no, it's like, no, fuck that. Like
God is also that.
Of course. God, it's like I mean, a lot of people, I mean, I have a 15-year-old son, and since he was really young, I've always told him that God isn't this guy who's judging you. Like God is the energy that makes flowers grow. God is the energy that makes volcanoes erupt and kill people. You know what I mean? Like, God is that energy that makes everything function. Doesn't make everything function. It is everything that is functioning.
It is.
It doesn't make things happen. It is happening. And that's what God is. So when we talk about Satanism, like as being a bad thing, or like, you know, like I'm not a Satanist. I don't know enough about it to call myself a Satanist, but yeah, I find it interesting.
The dark side of the force is a reality.
It is. It is.
We wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's lessons in everything.
It's funny that you mentioned the force and the dark side of the force, because I think Star Wars is like the sickest religion.
Oh yeah, totally.
Are you a Star Wars fan?
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah, like I know you like toys and stuff, but I mean the just Star Wars and Yoda and everything. The Force.
You know, like, you know, when Obi-Wan explains it in the first movie, it's like super on point. It's like it's just an energy that permeates everything, and if we tap into it, we become our oversouls and we're activated. Yeah. But there's also a dark side to it that's luring and as powerful.
Exactly.
You know? So it's like, whoa.
Isn't it amazing? It's like that's the best, that's the sickest Bible. Star Wars is the sickest Bible.
Totally.
It's like, and when you're a kid watching this, I'm sure you didn't think of Star Wars like that. I didn't when I was a...
Not really, but it's like subtle, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just kind of like, you're getting the message without thinking like it's a religion or a spiritual path. You're just kind of like, okay, cool. He's got this weird intuition thing that makes him kill the Death Star blindfolded.
Yeah.
Because only through going inside you can master the outside.
Yeah.
So that's fucking sick right there.
Yeah, and maybe that us watching that as kids, it kind of indirectly made us think of God and religion. Religion, I guess. And maybe it set us on a certain path that made it easier to take that path when we were older.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we're like, oh, I could relate this stuff to Star Wars. You know?
Yeah, totally. So back to you know, Rasta culture. You got, I imagine at the same time you got into reggae. And when did you start like DJing? You know, reggae. When did Maysr become
the DJ?
Or the DJ. Or did art come first, or were they hand in hand?
All about the same time, I guess, because I started getting into, well, my first love was hip hop, like in the 80s when I was a little kid, you know, like I think it was 86, I got Raising Hell, Run DMC album, and that was 86, so I was only 7 years old. I think it was 86 or 87. Run DMC, Beastie Boys.
Are you from 79?
Yeah, you too?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome, cool.
Are you 42?
Yeah, 42.
Oh, man,
When's your birthday?
The 3rd of March.
Okay, I'm in January.
Okay, nice. So you're a little bit older.
Like 2 months, yeah.
Okay,
that's
sick.
so cool.
42 is the answer of the universe, according to the Hitchhiker's Guide
to
the Galaxy.
Yeah, it's up there somewhere.
So
But
it's an important age. It's like a fucking crossroads. It has been for me. I don't know about you, but
I mean, I think we're all at some weird crossroads
I guess it's
right
never
now.
ending, but it's been an intense one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. But yeah, and we only have a few months left to be 42, so let's make it count.
True. But anyways, you're saying your first love was hip hop.
Yeah, hip hop in the 80s, and then also through my teens and through skateboarding. Okay, well, we could branch off to the music or the art, but it all kind of coincides.
Street culture.
Yeah, exactly. Street culture. 14, 15 years old, I started getting into, I started skating more and then learning more about hip hop through skateboarding. I was interested in reggae through my surroundings where I grew up in, so I started listening to more reggae and hip hop at the same time. And I knew rappers, but I was like, I don't know any DJs. And I was like, and I had a few records, so I bought some turntables, and I started buying hip hop records, and I really got into scratching, like turntablism stuff. Really got into that, and then fast forward a few years, I started realizing I was listening to more reggae than hip hop, so I started buying more reggae records, and I started collecting reggae records, and then I got a gig downtown when I was like 20 at a club, started playing reggae there. Then I moved to the Plateau, from NDG to the Plateau in 99. And then I started just being the reggae guy on Saint Laurent Street, you know? So I started getting all these gigs, DJing up and down Saint Laurent. And so that's how I got into collecting records and DJing. Just starting with hip hop, loving reggae, buying reggae, getting a gig, and now I'm still, you know, not so much now because of COVID, but like I'm still a reggae DJ. And
how is it being a reggae DJ? And I hate to bring up, you know, race, because race doesn't really matter, but like as a white dude, throwing yourself in, you know, a Caribbean culture. Does it have its challenges, or you don't give a fuck, or?
I mean, like, look, I'm very, I'm tough-skinned because I grew up in a neighborhood. I grew up being interested in Rastafari culture, growing my dreadlocks when I was 15 years old, 16, 17, around a lot of West Indian people, Jamaican people, and I got tested hard when I was a kid. And really, like, you know, I toughened up quick and learned to hold my own and be like, oh, you have a problem with this? Well, sorry, like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, this, I'm not going to stop my personal development and growth because somebody isn't okay with it. You know what I mean?
You gotta be who you are.
Yeah, you gotta be who I am. And like, right, and you know, I did have this, like, I always joke about it. I always tell people that I was Jamaican from '94 to 2002. You know, like I was half Jamaican from '94 to 2002. I had like this complex where like I was really absorbed in Jamaican culture, and so that was earlier. And then so later on, when I started growing older and being more in a West Indian community when it comes to DJing or trying to DJ as me, like I didn't, I mean, I felt fine with it.
Yeah, you didn't even think about it.
No, I didn't think about it. And like I've been doing a reggae night down the street for years. I'm very well accepted.
Oh yeah, well by now you're Maysr, everybody knows you, and no one's gonna question that, you know,
No
like
one-
you've been
yeah.
paying your dues for
Yeah.
decades.
Yeah, so it's not, and I'm a grown man, you know, nobody, you can't fuck with me at this point.
Right.
You know, like,
Have you ever been socially awkward or shy, or you're more of an extroverted person? Because as a DJ, you gotta be there in front of a bunch of people and
Yeah.
like keep the party going.
Yeah.
But as artists, sometimes we don't feel that. We're kind of like, I'd rather just stay home by myself.
as a human in general, I'm extremely introverted. I'm always alone. If I'm not with my son, 9 times out of 10, I'm alone. I love and I love it. I love being alone. I love, I take walks for hours a day alone. I'm at my house alone. I don't like people knowing too much about me, but at the same time, I don't mind DJing in front of 200 people and being really out there. I don't mind every once in a while posting crazy shit on Instagram, really exposing like what I eat and what I do on a daily basis. But at the same time, I'm like, I love to be away from people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like I love really fancy shit and I love really like dirty shit too. So like I'm constantly going through this thing in my life where like there's always two
Polarity.
yeah, extreme polarities
And
in
we
my
dance
life.
through them
Yeah.
and see where we're comfortable each day. Going back to your youth, when you're a graffiti artist too, when did that start?
That started through skateboarding. A lot of stuff started through skateboarding.
I didn't even know you were a skater.
Yeah. Like I mean, I a skater. I used to skate up until I was like in my early 20s, and then when my kid started when he got old enough, I was like, oh, this will get me back into skateboarding.
Yeah, I saw videos of you taking him to the park.
Yeah. So we skate together. He's surpassed me. Like I don't do anything. I'm afraid to ollie 2 stairs now. You know,
those
like
knees are not getting stronger.
I know, and it hurts when you fall. And it's like, so now like winters, I like going to the skate park with him to get some exercise, and I just skate around in circles and like.
You're close to the Van Horn Park around here.
We live right up the block from Van Horn Park.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. But there's a lot of people. I don't know. I like having space to like. Yeah, some
Well,
of
you
these
can always
skate-
find Alex Gavin in one corner and you want to
Yes,
hang
you
out with him.
can. Yeah, you're right. Always. But yeah, so skateboarding, through skateboarding, this is in the mid 90s, 93, 94, I started meeting, basically a friend of mine who I skated with, he knew some graffiti guys. So, and this one graffiti guy knew other graffiti guys. And in 94, I started writing graffiti in 94. 94 in Montreal, there was only a handful of us writing graffiti. Like literally maybe 20 people, 20, 30 people writing graffiti. It was a very small amount. So I was like, what is this? Like I've seen this on like maybe on record covers and like, but I didn't know the culture of graffiti, you know?
It's still underground, and there's no internet to clue you into everything.
No, there's nothing. You have to know somebody, right? It's like right now, if you're into graffiti and you live in the middle of nowhere, you could Google graffiti, you could order the best spray paint to your house, you can get inspired by YouTube videos and photos, and literally within a year, you could become a master of graffiti if you put the work in. Like I've seen it happen. I've seen kids who start writing graffiti and 2-3 years later, they're incredible. And here I am painting for like over almost 30 years, painting graffiti, and I'm like, fuck, man, these kids are so much better than me.
But you got something really good going too. You're very like intricate, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like there's so much going on in your pieces.
Yeah, that's what to rewind a bit, and I'll get into that, but I started through skateboarding. I basically, long story short, I met a bunch of graffiti writers through skateboarding. And I was like, this is so cool. And so I started sketching and painting, and within 2 years I started doing pieces, and I really got into wild style, like just crazy arrows. Like if you ask anybody in the 90s who was the wild style guy, it was me. Like
In Montreal.
Yeah, in the whole city. Like there was nobody doing it like me back then, literally. Like that's just what it was. I was really into that.
This is late 90s.
This is 90, I guess you'd say 96. Yeah, 96 to like 98, 99, I was really into wild style, crazy stuff. But by the time we're talking, like Montreal went crazy. Like there was, when I say a handful of graffiti artists in 94, that moved to a bigger handful in 95. And by the time 96 to 97 hit, there were hundreds of graffiti artists. It really went quick, you know.
When did Under Pressure start? Something around there, right?
Yeah, I think
96, 97, 98.
I think the first one, well, I remember the first one, I was there, Mount Royal. We must have been about 17 years old, so that's 20. I think Under Pressure just did their 25th anniversary last year.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it started, Under Pressure started a year into my graffiti career.
That's so crazy that there was a graffiti festival that early on.
Yeah.
It probably, I don't know, I'm sure there was other things happening around the world, but that's cool that Montreal was like in on this thing and supporting it well from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah, like corporate sponsors and happened. They were giving big parking lots when it was on Guy there, and yeah, like that's really cool. It's true, eh? I never thought about that.
Yeah, no, I always felt Under Pressure was special, and I'm happy it's still going in whatever version that it has to happen in this crazy world. So you were painting walls, and you never like, you know, did you ever take that into a more commercial place in art, or at least the side of graffiti, or you just kept it in the streets, illegal?
I mean, I think I was never like a big bomber. I never did a lot of illegal graffiti, but I did do my fair share. Like, but I was never up. Like, if you ask anybody from the 90s how up in the city I was, people would be like, oh, I've seen a few throw-ups, you know? Like, I was never really, but keep in mind, like, graffiti in Montreal in 96, 97, it was destroyed. Like, people were bombing it was crazy.
I can't imagine.
This is like the Damo era, and guys, I don't want to start mentioning names because there's tons of names, but there was a bunch of guys who were like going crazy. So my shit would never really stick out too much, and I got a few gigs and stuff, but I never really made art a career. Still to this day, like, I make money off of art, but it's not like my main focus. Like, you know what I like doing? I like, when it comes to art, I do what is comfortable to me. I have nothing to prove. I don't really try to progress. I naturally do progress. But I take art as something enjoyable. I like to, like, I'm sure it's a source of income for you, but I'm sure there's some things you really enjoy and there's some things you don't enjoy as much. You know what I mean?
Well, there's different branches to the trees, and I do like doing a cool graphic every now and then, but if all I'm doing is graphics, I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go back outside and paint a mural. Yeah. But if I'm only painting in the sun every day, I get tired. Yeah. I wanna go back to the studio and do a canvas, and maybe be doing like one style and be like, I already kind of like crushed that style. Let's do a style that I'm bad at. And then I'll do the bad painting and be like, okay, that's not that great, but I'm playing and expressing myself. And as you're saying, like, I don't have to prove myself anymore. I guess, like, naturally, I still want to show my work and progress in my career, but I don't want to be in a competition with no artists out there or even with myself. I just want to have fun and express myself. And if I can make a living from it, amazing.
Yeah. So I feel the same way about, you see how you have different type, like painting murals. Sometimes you really want to paint murals, and sometimes you want to work inside, and sometimes you want to do this style of art. I look at my whole life as art like that. I'm like a life artist, where sometimes I want to cook, sometimes I want to walk on the mountains, sometimes I want to feed birds, sometimes I want to do graffiti. And when I do graffiti, when I do my visual art, I want it to be as free flowing and effortless as possible, because I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to become a famous graffiti artist. You know what I mean? I just like doing what comes naturally to me, and you know, that's one of my art forms, is doing graffiti. The other art form is making smoothies. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're here on this planet to make art, in a sense, and art is up to your interpretation. You know what I mean?
Well, you're keeping it pure, because say a lot of us artists that have turned into a career, sometimes it can take away the joy of it.
Yeah.
You know, I have so many like young artists hit me up being like, hey, how do I make money from my art? And I'm just like, okay, I get it. You'd like to get paid for this thing that you love to do, so you can keep on doing it more. Like, that's why I do it. But don't sell out the joy of simply making it because you gotta make it too quick. You know, keep on making it. And a lot of these kids also are not that good yet. So it's be like, just keep on making it.
Yeah.
You know, have fun. And once it's like so good, it's undeniably like, you know, it'll be effortless to like try out and sell and make a living from it, because you'll have something special to offer.
Yeah, and it's not so much more of a natural way to have, like, when you start your artistic career by like, okay, how do I make money off this? You're gonna fuck yourself over, because you're only producing art to make money.
Right, it's not the right intention.
No, it's a horrible intention, because then if that starts rolling and working, then you basically just have a job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you have a job that you don't totally enjoy doing. But when you start just producing art and really producing what comes out of you naturally, and then people start gravitating towards it, and then it's not a job. Then it's like you're making money off stuff you love, off things that you love to do.
Right.
And that's what happened to me, because I do make money off of art. It's not anything that I push too much, but it does happen. And when I do it, people, the people who hire me for what I can do, and for my eye, and for what I can, you know, if I walk into a space, they appreciate my eye and what I could do for their space. And that's so natural to me. It doesn't happen all the time, but that's okay. I'd rather people who really appreciate me for my eye to come in and make their place beautiful than people appreciate me for some forced thing that I do that I don't even, it's not even natural, but I'm like, yeah, this could work, and then I'm getting all these gigs all over doing shit that I don't even really like, you know? It's like DJing too. I relate that to music. Like, I've been in positions where I'm playing bullshit I don't even like, and I'm like, well, for like $400 I'm playing this shit. Like, I'd rather stay at home, you know what I mean? But when I'm playing music that I really enjoy, you know, that's great. And people enjoy the music that you're playing for them, and they're giving you money. It's like, yes, this is nice.
Right, that's the perfect combination. Doing what you're passionate of and getting paid on top of it. You won at life.
Yeah, sure.
Just stay grateful for it and keep it going, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were DJing a lot here in Montreal, and you're doing graffiti. When did you get on Cops Crew? What was Cops Crew, and what's of them today? Because I remember back in the day, Cops Crew was like the biggest, coolest situation, making all these crazy art parties.
Yeah,
And, you were like a big part of it.
Sure, that was such a cool era, man. Cops Crew basically started with my friend Seki and me and this other kid, Burst. We had this little crew called BTM, and then eventually it was just me and there was a few people in BTM. But then basically it whittled away to me and Seki was like, yo, we should, or Sek, like you might know him as Sek. Yeah, so Sek was like, we should start a new crew, and he came up with KOP, and he was like, okay, so that's it. Like, we started this new crew. And then basically we met a few guys that for sure you know them, from Dawson. I guess this was about 99-ish. And there was a crew called AI back then who was like, I might get some of this wrong, but like the AI thing and who was in AI. But basically, some kids that we met, like Morons and Spectre, and
There was Product.
Neos.
Jolie, yeah.
Who else was?
There's Abra was the beatboxer.
Abra. Basically, KOP ended up being me and Seki, and we put a few other guys down with it, and through those guys we met other guys, and within 2 years or something, 2 or 3 years, we had this crew that was like a mishmash of people from different areas, different styles, and a lot of the guys I think a lot of the guys took a heavy influence from Other.
Yeah. He was like he was part of that crew, but he was kind of like the inspiration, the grandmaster or something.
Yeah, I think he was the inspiration for a lot of guys like Product and man, like everybody on that side of the crew, like the whole like Moron, Spectre, Product, Neos thing. Like we were all into graffiti, but those guys were more into like really cool characters, right?
Yeah, him and
Labrona, yeah, exactly. So Leak, a guy named Leak, all these guys from our crew started doing that, but they had graffiti in them, so they'd go out and do like really cool characters on the side of buildings, on rooftops, and nobody was doing it that time except Other.
It was very unique.
Sure.
Product was in my class in Dawson when I first got to Montreal, and he totally didn't fit in. It was illustration and design, so it's very like presentation and cleanliness, and you're selling a product, and he'd show up all like
fucked up, dirty hair,
and dirty and stinky, and draw monsters and stuff like that. And it was fucking sick. He was the best artist in the class.
Yeah.
But the teacher was like, yeah, but today you gotta sell UPS on this poster, and you just got this weird graffiti. And like computer class, forget about it. He just sit there being like, I can't do this shit. And eventually he got, I guess, dismissed or something. And actually Morons quit the day before he graduated too.
Really?
As a fuck you to the system. But I went to their house once because Product and me had a school project where he had to do a portrait of me and I had to do a portrait of him and each other's styles. Cool. So he took me to his house and I was like, with all these graffiti guys, and he was just telling me like, I just went to jail I got busted. It's like, well, these guys are hardcore.
Yeah, we were always getting thrown into jail, all of us. Fuck yeah.
It was like the cool hardcore crew, and the project was very interesting. I learned a lot by hanging out with him, and I should really get him on the show. I just kind of lost a little bit of touch.
I saw him the other day.
Okay, what's he up to?
He's an interesting guy, man. He's definitely an artist.
He's the epitome of the artist, but on one side of the spectrum. When I teach my classes, I say like an artist can have like the the right brain, I think, is the creative side, where it's like where you rock at art. But then there's the other side of the brain that we need to like answer emails and be organized and look and research a gallery and how to hit him up, and then
I don't think he has that part.
I don't think he's got that part.
I think that's what makes you a really successful artist. Like you there's that like you gotta have both parts.
Right. And there's some people who only have the other side that are really good to be in with the galleries, but they are kind of not that great.
Yeah, introduce that guy to product and they'll be on fire, you know?
Dude, like it'd be great if all of us artists had some kind of manager taking care of business, so we can just fucking do the fun part.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so back then so you experienced the crew firsthand, like, and we really separated. We didn't separate ourselves from the Montreal graffiti scene, but we were definitely our own entity in the Montreal graffiti scene. I mean, I'm the more conventional throw-ups, tags, and dope pieces type of guy. Like, I come from that background, but these guys...
weird.
Weird. Just weird.
But in a cool way.
Sure, and they were doing really cool shit, and like it really... we made an impact on the Montreal graffiti scene because we were so different. And like, half of us were like all vegan, and this is like 25 years ago, over 20 years ago, vegan, hippie type, artsy street guys, like getting thrown in jail. Like, we really when I really think about it, like we were so different than everybody, like, and which was a blessing and a curse, but overall a blessing. So Cops Crew, and then we started, we were just a crew. It went from a graffiti crew to just a bunch of guys hanging out and musicians and DJs. So naturally we were like, okay, let's we had a little art gallery at one point.
Oh, cool. 2
different art galleries actually, and we started throwing parties. We were like, let's make some money. So we'd throw parties and put all our resources together. We had DJs and bands, and
those parties were really awesome.
They were fun, right?
I went to a few of them for sure.
Yeah. So
big loft, art everywhere. Yeah. Very once again, other when I first arrived to Montreal, and he had these warehouse parties at their giant loft they lived in Grafton Town, and art everywhere. And that's where I met, like all you guys on the walls.
Yeah, sure.
That was super special. And I guess at one point they really just went on their own side and it stopped being a thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like people get older, start getting married, having kids, jobs. Well, not so much jobs. I can't really think of any of us who got like conventional jobs. More like married and kids and stuff.
Or in deep trouble.
And I mean that was, we're talking, we started that when we were like 17, 18, and like it started tapering off when we were in our early 20s, so people are starting to separate, and that's cool. Like it was a thing. It was what it was. It was amazing. We made an impact. We had a lot of fun. And I still love all those guys, and we bump into each other. I was just with Morons this summer. Nice. I still speak to, Spectre's been in New York for years, but he comes back and visits me, and we hung out with Komos, all the,
Heck.
there's still a lot of long distance relationships.
Beautiful. Tell me a little bit about being an entrepreneur. You've had a couple businesses. One was the Local Jerk.
Local Jerk, yeah.
And then you have a clothing brand called the Love Battalion, I believe.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about creating your own brands, the ups and the downs of throwing down and doing your thing.
I mean, it's the only thing. Like I've never really had. The last time I had a real job was in '99. I worked as a dishwasher in an old folks home in Westmount. Okay, so that was 23 years ago. Other than that, I'm a hustler, man. Like I don't like working for other people unless I really look at it as my own business. You know what I mean? Like I do work for other companies, but as like sometimes I'll work for other companies, but as a
Individual?
yeah, you know, like as my own company, bringing my skills to the table for that company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I still do.
They're not your
things.
boss.
No, you know,
They're a
like
client.
yeah, exactly. And it's always been like that. And so like I've always man, I've had so many little businesses throughout the years, and most recently I opened a restaurant with a few friends that was doing really well, and we ended up closing. But people are always like, "Oh, the restaurant closed. That's too bad. I'm sorry." I'm like, "No, it was amazing. I had such a good experience. It just wasn't really making enough money. We had a lot of clients, but it wasn't the restaurant business." I realized if I were to open another restaurant, I would do it alone.
Splitting the profit in free was probably difficult.
Splitting the profit with people who aren't working there and who are just owners, like we all invested money and then we were meant to split money at the end. It's like, that's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Unless you have some big, extravagant, crazy restaurant that's making like, you know, $30,000 a weekend. Like that's one thing. But we were a little restaurant. I wasn't working there. If I were to open a restaurant again, I would work there. I would own it and work there. So at least I make my salary, and any extra I put in my pocket. But anyway, it was a great experience. Closed
and what was
it down.
it? Beef jerky?
No, it was local jerk. It was we realized that in the plateau there was no West Indian like roti jerk chicken type spot. So a friend of mine, Chris, approached me and he was like, "Hey, I got this idea for a restaurant." And I was like, "Oh, it's a good idea." And I was into it, but then we ended up getting 2 other partners involved. And
Also, it's 4 people?
yeah, it was 4 people.
So it's masturbator.
Yeah, it was Chris, Master Beater.
Yeah.
That's not his actual real name, just for anybody. But he's known as that. He's a DJ, his artist name. And then 2 other people you probably don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, it was called Local Jerk because Chris wanted to do jerk chicken there. So I think he came up with the name, and I think it's hilarious. I'm vegan. Half the menu was vegan. I think even more than half the menu ended up being vegan, and Chris was down with that. Like we wanted to accommodate everybody. But then it fell apart and fell apart. I don't know if it fell apart. We made a decision. We made a decision to abandon ship.
Right before COVID?
Right before COVID.
Okay, so good time to do that.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. But some people are making a lot of money with COVID doing deliveries. So
Yeah.
I don't know. So that was fun. I learned so much. I'm really grateful for the experience. I own a brand called Love Battalion. That was super fun. Like I never thought I really like clothes. Okay, I really like.
You won Montreal's best dressed.
Best dressed,
for
yeah, that's
years,
so funny.
right?
For years, people kept voting me as Montreal's best dressed.
On the newspaper.
I was like, I dress interesting. I don't know best,
I
but
always see you with white t-shirts.
yeah. I always only wear white t-shirts. It's
Monkey's
so funny.
working so hard at his style, and you're taking the crown.
Oh man, hell yeah, it comes natural. But I find that clothing, because I have such a passion for graffiti, I find that clothing is the same. I really relate graffiti and clothing together with like colors, you know, like matching colors. With the human body, it's like a graffiti letter, you know, like I think the way that you dress the human body is like stylizing a letter, you know, like an A could look like this, or a K could look like funky like that. Whereas if you put certain layers on the human body, however you move gives it this graffiti, gives your body like walking graffiti mixed with the colors, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So
Fashion is an artistic expression as much as it's been hijacked by very superficial people wanting to make a lot of money from it. But
Right.
my ex-wife studied fashion in Belgium, and she wanted to like make clothes and stuff, but that's just the industry just was not for her.
Yeah, and I could imagine. So what that I thought, well, at first I was like, I want to design clothes. Like nobody makes pants like this. I'm going to design pants. I never did that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I designed pants that I knew I wanted to wear. Sold tons of them. I designed a really dope jogging suit that I never saw in my life. I never saw anybody with this idea. I designed the jogging suit last winter, sold tons of them. So I obviously like, and I don't know what I'm doing, you know? And like, I see, you know, I like the color purple. So I did a purple hat with white embroidery, or a purple sweater. I like yellow. I did yellow and white. I'm like, I don't really see yellow and white hoodies. Let me do this hoodie and slap a logo on there. And it worked. It's like, so I mean, as an artist, as a visual artist, you can apply that to so many things. You could be really into graffiti and be like, yo, you know what would be dope? A building that looks like, then whatever your graffiti taste is, a building that looks like the
Brazilian
letter.
Picasso.
Sure, you know, and then you can design that building. Designing a building and designing a jogging suit are two different things. But what I'm saying, the artistic mind, you could apply that to so many different things. So I applied it to fashion, and I came up with this. I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna do this brand, what am I gonna call it? And I think Love Battalion is a very strong. It gives strong imagery. I think the world needs more love, or I think the world has a lot of love in it. I think we should unleash that love that's in it, you know? I
Love
think
is the weapon in this battle between good and evil.
yeah.
And we're the soldiers of Jah Army.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so when you think of battalion, you think of soldiers, you know? And but these are love soldiers, and like if I'm going to put clothing on a bunch of people, might as well have them label themselves as a love battalion. Like I think that's just beautiful. So that's what I did.
Nice, man. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm so into like being a spiritual warrior.
Sure, like why not, right?
Yeah.
Like why not apply, why other than just being a spiritual warrior through your day-to-day life, why not apply that to everything that you can apply it to?
Right, because once again, as street culture people, we've lived this, like, you know, on the streets where there's tensions and there's fight. Like I was in a street gang when I was younger, and I loved it. You know, like I wouldn't throw a rock or a brick at a person anymore or hate them because they're from a different soccer team. That makes no sense. But when I was a kid, it was very exciting to be in that whole war thing. But now I can use that same mentality of like, okay, there's a war between good and evil on the planet, and I want to use love, compassion, understanding, gratitude, forgiveness as a way to try to, you know, heal this energy that's dominating right now, but I believe is on its way out, kicking and screaming.
Yeah, yeah. And using all those things you just spoke of is the way to do it.
Nice.
Yeah, so
You owe me a hat, by the way.
oh, I got tons of hats for
Okay,
you. Don't
nice.
worry, I got tons of hats for you. The thing is, I actually I was gonna drop a winter line this winter, like right now. I put it on hold right now, so I don't know when this is gonna drop. I did put my winter line on hold for certain reasons, but whenever this podcast drops, check out my Love Battalion Instagram page and website. And let's see if there's some new stuff up there. I don't like putting pressure on myself to do drops, but every time I do a drop, it's always really successful.
Yeah, more
I
organic
love it.
that way.
Yeah, exactly.
It happens when it happens, and
Yeah.
then you just, you know, take it while it lasts.
Yeah.
Limited edition.
Yeah, exactly. And I always sell out, and it's always does well. So and this is like, I told my kid, like, there's so many, I always tell him this, you could have so many ideas. Every day people have great ideas. You just got to do it. Do it. Fuck it. Whatever happens, happens. Just do things, and something's gonna happen. Some people say to me like, "Oh, you always have this new project. You're always working on something." Everybody can do that. Everybody can always come up with, and everybody already does come up with the idea, but they never actually execute.
Right.
And I'm a victim of that too. Like, I don't execute half of the shit I think about.
Yeah, just time is busy and doesn't allow for us to manifest everything we can think. But like, there does take some degree of personal power to be like, you know what, I will do that project that's being in my mind. I'm not gonna let it fade away and die. It's worthy of existence.
And you know what it is? It takes that power. But once the momentum starts going, once you realize like that I did that in the past, I could do this. It's like, it's easier to throw yourself out there and just like I don't know anything about designing clothes. And I just did it. I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm just gonna do it. And like hope that it works out. And if it doesn't work out, I end up with all these cool clothes that I design that I you know what I mean?
Right.
So you can't lose. So but I think it's hard for a lot of people. You work a 9 to 5, then you're so tired and you come home and you just want to watch TV and be in bed by 10 o'clock so you could do the same thing over again tomorrow. So, but I know that if that one person who has a 9 to 5, when they come back home and they just say, hey, maybe I should start a podcast like this, and they call a friend and they just do one and put it out there, and 100 people look at it and there's a few good comments, it's like, oh wow, I did that. Like, okay, now I want to let's move on to video, like, or now I'm into video podcasts. I learned how to use a camera. My friend is a singer. I'm going to go make her video right now and then I'm going to put it out there. And then next thing you know, you go from this 9 to 5 to being a video producer.
Right.
And all it took was you to not watch TV that one night and do a podcast with your friend and let other people hear it.
Right, which is more fun and real to me. There's something really special like avoiding getting a real job, a 9 to 5 as you call it. And as you said, last time you did it was when you're 19 or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
I remember my last job, like I got fired. It was like a call center and I was joking with the client. I was like, oh, you can't do that, you're fired. And I was like, fuck this shit, working for other people in businesses that I don't agree with and selling business yellow pages. Who gives a shit? Is this my life? Fuck it. From now on, I'm only gonna like work on things that I believe in and probably things that just come out from my own creativity.
And how much did you struggle in the beginning?
Well, when I got out of school, I was like, okay, I still need money. I was a tree planter. That was a job I believed in. And you got a foreman, but you're just by yourself in nature planting trees. And that gave me like a little, a few G's to cruise till I could figure it out. And to be honest, I was on welfare for years. And, $500 a month. So I was like very tight till I could get the momentum of my art career going. I was working at my art all day long, finding which magazine to get it in. The social media was not there. Internet was fresh. So I was like, where do I get it? And you just figure it out.
But it was a struggle, right?
Oh, yeah. But, either way, it's blessed. Like, I was doing what I loved.
Yeah, So, I mean, I think people don't have to do anything. What I do think is that there's a lot of people out there who have these 9 to 5s and they're not happy, and they can do other things, but it's hard. I mean, this whole society has conditioned us to think that we have to get this 9 to 5, and they just pay you enough just to pay your bills, but then at the end of the week you run out of the money and you need to make more, so you got to go back to that 9 to 5, and then you're constantly just coasting in this kind of comfortable but almost not uncomfortable position, and then you die like that. And that is but some people are like, but that's secure. At least you have your security.
Right.
If you get out of that mentality of that being security, and if you realize like, no, I could live in some shitty apartment and what most people deem as shitty apartment and cook enough food for me and be happy with just my little bit of food, and but I'm doing art all day. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, it's great. Sounds like a great life.
Yeah, sure. You live in a cheap apartment, but you're doing art all day, and you have more time for that because you might only work 2 days a week at the corner store. You know, it's like, but you know what the problem with that is? There's comparisons. Like, a lot of people would be like, oh, well, this is no good. It's like, yeah, I paint all day, but look, I don't have anything to show. Like, I don't. But you're only comparing yourself to the guy down the block who has like the fancy car. And you know, if we stop comparing ourselves to people and just, you got to look inside and say, okay, what am I happy? What will make me happy?
Right. We've been conditioned to, like, you know, chase this dream of material success, of fame. In many cases, if you're an artist, like, you know, being rich and famous and all this shit. It's like, sadly, as an artist, to not be good at it, but to succeed at it, you need a lot of people knowing of you, so then they buy the products or your art. So it's a tricky.
But here's the thing: if your sole intention is, this is my point though, if your sole intention is to sell your art and make money off of it, that's one thing. But there's really nothing bad about the guy who rakes people's leaves and shovels people's snow and makes art in his little apartment, and the art goes nowhere.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's like that song Lucy by Aesop Rock, was it?
Okay, yeah, well, I don't know.
It's
the
a song
lyrics.
about an artist, and it's like this shy girl that can't even look at the people, and all she's doing is art all day. And then at the end of the song, she's on her deathbed, and the nurse never even heard her speak, and she's like, fuck, that life was amazing, you know? And the nurse like, really? All you did was fucking stay in your apartment drawing. It's like, I did everything I always wanted to do, and I did it with passion and joy. So I was like,
that's my point. So like, I know we started this conversation by talking about hustling and making money without having a job, but I mean, that's all great, but there's nothing wrong with this girl drawing in her apartment and fuck it, even being on welfare, like whatever, and as long as you're happy, you know, like there's homeless people out there who are happy. Not all of them. Some of them are really struggling. Some people, they're homeless because they'd rather live that life,
right,
and just sleep in the streets, no rent. They find ways to make little bits of money and food. Some of them are very happy, and there's nothing wrong as long as you're happy. We have all this pressure and thinking like we have to make all this money, or that the art that you produce has to generate income. It doesn't have to. It's great if you, you know, I like traveling. I love my apartment. I love being able to buy the food that I want to eat. That takes money. So I made it possible for me to make enough money without working for somebody else to do all those things, to afford all those things. But some people, if they just want to sit around and doodle all day, there's nothing wrong with that, and be totally broke. Like, I envy people like that. Like, that's a good life.
Yeah, it's true. As long as you're doing what makes you happy,
Yeah.
there's no wrong.
Yeah.
So tell me about your latest, I don't know if it's an art project, but your latest activity. Sitting in the park, feeding squirrels and birds.
Okay, this is a good segue, whether you realize it or not,
Okay.
but because I really, I'm a little envious of homeless people, the ones who are totally happy, not having any commitments, and they could do whatever the hell they want. And I realized that sitting around feeding birds in parks makes me really happy, and it gives me a glimpse of it makes me feel free, more free than I am. Because here's my thing: when I have free time, in the last few years, I'm always thinking about, okay, like I don't sit down and watch TV. You know, like I'll watch some movies every once in a while, but when my free time, I'm constantly thinking like, okay, what's my next move? What's a new cool project I could come up with? What's something that I want to do? I like forgetting about that and using my free time to just sit down and have birds eat out of my hand or watch squirrels play. Or sometimes I literally sit down on the corner of the street for 3 hours and I just watch people go by. I just sit there.
I love people watching.
Yeah. You know, and I think I walk 2 hours a day. I've been doing that for a year now. And I don't bring headphones, because that distracts. I think a lot. I'm constantly thinking about stuff. I like walking, not listening to music, and just thinking for no reason other than to just think about whatever. And sometimes I get into this meditative zone where I'm not thinking about anything. And I'm just, I just looking, but there's no moving thoughts in my head.
It's like a walking meditation almost.
Big time. And then a little thing will happen, then I'll start thinking about the coolest shit. There's like, we take it for granted, but we can literally think about anything. And that's incredible. We take it for granted because we've been doing it our whole life, but the fact that we can think about any single thing, and our thoughts can lead to other thoughts, and those thoughts lead to other thoughts that give us something. We figure shit out and we're like, whoa, I just figured out, like all on your own through observing or thinking, you figure out the coolest concepts. And it's just amazing that we have the power to think. So coming back to feeding birds, sometimes, or walking around and just thinking, just exploring the mind, I think, is so amazing that we actually have the power to explore our mind, and that mind grows like a plant, and it gives us fruit. Like, that's incredible, and we take it for granted.
Beautiful observation, man.
Yeah.
It's so great that we can do this thing that, as you say, we take for granted because we're doing it nonstop. But to stop and just observe it, I did mushrooms last week, and it reminded me of, when I was 20 and I first was smoking weed, and then I'd just lie there and think. And I never really did that. You never just kind of like stopped and did nothing and just, you always had to do something. You watch TV, you read a magazine, you go out skateboarding, you do homework. You gotta have an activity, but there's never this just stopping and just like observing, which is meditation, but I only found out years later. And through like doing mushrooms the other night, it reminded me like, oh yeah, I've been doing a lot of things lately. I've never just stopped to think, and I guess that's why I would do mushrooms, to just go inside and observe deeper what's going on there. Yeah,
totally. And well, you should go feed birds one day.
That's the best drug.
but I do, yeah, totally. But it is, we get. It's just hard to break that cycle of, like I was saying, whenever I had some free time, I'd be like, okay, let me do something. You know what? How about you do nothing? And by nothing, you're still doing something. Go out for a walk. Or the feeding birds is almost, I think it's just a way to get me out to walk to the destination. But I do enjoy having them come sit on my hand. I do it almost every day, and they eat and they leave. And sometimes I'm really involved thinking about the birds, but sometimes I'm thinking about other stuff, and I'm just sitting there in this meditative state feeding birds. But yeah, it's become some. Like, you might see me in 20 years being that old guy in the park who's always feeding the birds in the park. I might be that guy.
You'll have a little squirrel nest on your head.
in my hair, yeah. Oh, the squirrels come too. They come on me and they eat off my hands too, the squirrels and the birds.
That's so cool. I had a squirrel pet for a minute.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I know somebody else who did
His
too.
name was Pepito. He fell off a tree, and my ex-wife picked him up, brought him home, and I had to feed him with a little fucking mamadera. And it was fun, and he would butt into my dreads and take a nap there, but then he would poop, so you get all these pellets coming off. And
What happened in the end?
he grew, and he started getting more squirrely.
Yeah.
So when I would come to him, he'd like, he bit me a couple of times, and then he started chewing up all the cables in my office.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, yeah, this shit's too wild for
Yeah.
like a domesticated pet.
Yeah.
So we built him a little house,
Yeah.
put him on the tree, and hoped for the best
Yeah.
that he could survive winter. Because who knows
Yeah.
if the lack of his motherly skills,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Shit. Poor guy.
Yeah.
He's dead now. He was dead a month
I
later.
spray painted his tail, so then we would recognize him in the back.
Smart.
And it's like, oh, it's Pepito with the pink tail.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've heard the same story. Somebody else had a little one. Yeah, you can't domesticate them. They end up going crazy and then they leave.
Mm-hmm.
What was I think?
But you're like feeding squirrels too, so that's fun.
Yeah, I did mushrooms the other day too, and I came up. Man, I thought of some really cool. Something really cool happened to me. Because I was on mushrooms. Now I only do mushrooms alone. I go off. Yeah.
Yeah, because after all my ayahuasca ceremonies, when I do mushrooms, kind of turns into ayahuasca. Not as intense, but it's about like, it just moves me. It's uncomfortable. Like I wouldn't want to do that in front of people. I'll have to cry or yell or throw up sometimes. I just need to get my shit out. But there's also good moments too. But those are also for myself.
Yeah. And I think there's conflicting energies when you're with other people. It's like, I'm sure when you were 17, 18, just like me, you do mushrooms with your friends, or if you didn't do mushrooms then, maybe smoke weed or whatever, and you'd goof around and laugh, it's funny, and you laugh at funny things, and it's a big funny thing, and then you fall asleep. Yeah. But now it's like, it's not this funny thing anymore. Like I don't need somebody else's energy to bounce off of. I'm way happier with my own energy to bounce off of, to absorb.
Because you're in good company in there.
Sure, and you can't go wrong because nobody's gonna say the wrong thing and make you start thinking something weird, and
trigger you. Or
you don't run that risk. So I was doing mushrooms the other day, and I went out. I always take my skateboard, and I go on these electric bixies, the electric bikes. Like I'll skate, and then I'll put the thing there, and then I'll take the electric bike up the mountain, and it's really nice. And
no, it stops you to talk or anything.
No. So you're on your own. You're mobile. You can always get away if you need to. So it's okay to be in the public. Like you can get away quick.
Right.
So I was thinking the whole trip, I was like, the last few trips this year always ends with me being like, everything's so good. Like life is so beautiful. Life is amazing. And then I got home and I was in bed and I was closing my eyes and I started seeing all these like monsters and scary things. And I don't like horror movies. I don't like masks. I don't like the visions of monsters. I don't like gross, bloody things. All I was getting were visuals of bloody masks, monsters.
I've had that too, and sometimes.
Yeah?
Yeah. When you go to sleep, when you're coming down on some psychedelic journey.
I've had it before in the past, like just smoking like strong weed. That's happened to me, and but I don't really smoke weed anymore, so it affects me kind of weird when I do. So, and it was always disturbing, and I'd have to open my eyes and be like, "Hey, like, get out of this,"
Right.
This time, I was falling asleep, and I was so at ease, almost enjoying the morphing of gross visuals. And I fell asleep to monsters, where normally I'd open my eyes and try to shake myself. And I think what that was me spending the last 5 hours acknowledging how beautiful things are. I was forced to see this imagery of the things that I don't find beautiful, and I automatically was like, no, that's beautiful too. And I was like, that's really, I was really at ease with it. And I fell asleep to beautiful images of disgusting things.
You gotta appreciate it for what it is too, because
Sure.
sometimes it's so weird that I know what you're talking about because it happens to me, and I'm not afraid. I was like, well, that's ugly, but I know it's not attacking me. There's nothing to fear here. It's all inside me, but it's just so weird. I was like, well, am I making that up? Am I seeing something that exists? Where's this coming? What am I tuning in right now?
Yeah.
So it's just mysterious, and I just go like, wow.
Well, you know what? You say that, yeah, it's mysterious, and you're like, wow, I think maybe, you know what? I think now that you mention it, it's the first time I thought about this. Maybe that's always my thing, like, oh, this is weird, like, why is this happening? I think maybe I tricked myself into believing that this was a sign showing me that these things can be beautiful too, but by tricking myself into thinking that those things are beautiful too, I realized that they actually are beautiful too. Maybe not beautiful in the visual sense, but it's a part of life, and life is beautiful, right?
Everything's God.
Yeah, everything is God. Whether what we perceive to be negative or positive, it's all one thing. And so I think maybe I was like, oh no, this is okay too. And I fell asleep thinking that, which is, I don't know, it's
It's a
pretty
nice
amazing.
perspective, man.
Sure.
So we live in the world of duality, of good and bads and all this stuff. Do you got any particular observation of the last year and a half that we've gone through?
Yeah, sure. It's been pretty intense. I mean, in my opinion, things only have power if you give them the power. You know, so if you give something the power to sway you, it's going to sway you. If you don't, it has a harder time to sway you. Sometimes things are avoidable, you know. If something jumps up and scares you, you're going to be frightened. But if you condition yourself to realize that every once in a while something's going to jump up and scare you, you might not be scared when next time it happens.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, you learn that you'll be okay.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I've jumped in the fire so many times. Every time I go on a trip, I get nervous. And I've traveled a lot. And you would think that after traveling, you're like, oh, it's just another trip. I was like, but I've never been to India. Like, what if I'll never find a clean bathroom again? And like, we'll all be strange. And this is a whole month. Like, my mind just goes. But then I do a whole month in India. It's like, yeah, there were bumps and weird things. Like, you were fine. And I got to do that so many times to remind myself, everything's going to be fine, Chris, no matter what scares you.
Yeah. So I think that you could draw a parallel to these, whatever's been, all these things that have been happening in the last year and a half with COVID and all that, to a lot of people who haven't accepted the fact that crazy things in life happen and you're going to be okay. A lot of those people, they're really in a state of shock right now, understandably. I think I've gone through a lot of crazy things in my life where when I see this, it is something new, but I know I'm going to be okay. A lot of that has to do with, like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, what do you think the general worst case scenario is of most people? Like,
For COVID or the vaccine?
everything in general.
I guess death would be the ultimate bad thing to happen, but
That's-
I'm at peace with death too.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. So the ultimate, like, but most people, if you're not at peace with death, this could be extremely scary. Anything can be extremely scary because
I
you're
think losing
ultimate.
your family could be worse too.
Well, yeah, sure, because yeah, exactly. Like,
What if I didn't do the correct thing and then my wife and kids died?
yeah.
That could,
And if you realize, I mean, a lot of things, this takes a lot of work, but a lot of things led me to be in a state where no matter what happens, I know I'm going to be fine. Worst case scenario, I die. And I'm cool with that too. So if it takes a lot of work to get to that point though. So everything that's going on right now, I'm okay with it. Obviously, I don't like when people are getting sick. I don't like when I see people, this is disturbing a lot of people's mental health For one reason, the mental health thing could go two ways. There's the people who are so worried and they're so scared of COVID, it's really messing them up mentally. The other side of how this is and I'm talking about people who really need to be out there and hug people, and it's really affecting them mentally. But then there's the other people it's affecting them, the other group of people who are getting mentally affected by this are the people who are constantly looking at the internet and taking in all this information.
The alternative sources,
yeah.
or as some people call it, conspiracy theories.
Well, you know what? No, both sides. I think the conventional news outlets and what some people call as conspiracy websites and news, both sides are equally, it's disturbing them mentally, because the average person who's watching mainstream media is constantly getting this thrown into their face.
Well, it's almost, it seems like, to me at least, and this is totally opinion, that the mainstream media is okay by shocking you into something that keeps your attention, so you keep on watching them. But also, if they are truly cahoots with the corporations and politicians that, you know, they work with, to have the population fearful makes it more malleable.
Yeah.
Now, the conspiracy or alternative theory people, I don't think they want to make people afraid, but they're researching some dark information that might be true or not. It's still as scary, sometimes even more scary, because you realize how deep the dark force is, you know, doing their thing.
Yeah.
And it's not really helping in the end, because like the only way we're going to get out of this is when we like raise our vibration and we know that everything will be okay. And like we keep that vibe of optimism and love. If we're like, oh shit, we're fucked, we're going to be a bunch of technocratical slaves and there's no way out of this, that's going to help manifest it.
Yeah, 100%. That is helping manifesting it. And here's my little theory that just yesterday I was thinking about this, because I really try not to think about this type of stuff so much, but I made this observation where I realized that what people are doing right now, they're scanning the internet or news, whatever news sources they have, and they're gathering information because they're afraid of the enemy. People are afraid of the enemy. So they're gathering all this information about what the enemy's trying to do to them. So in fear, they're like, okay, I got to see what the fuck these guys are up to. Like, oh shit, oh my God, they're doing this, they're doing that. Yo, this is putting us in a really fucked up position right now. They're gathering this information. They're like, oh my God, people need to know about this. They share it on Facebook. They share this. Look what the enemy's doing. Somebody else in that friend group is like, oh man, that's crazy. Like, I feel you. Like, I could really resonate with this because there's other stuff that I know about this that they're doing. Hey, have you seen this? And next thing, and they're all doing this from a place of fear. Next thing you know, they're spreading this forest fire of fear to everybody. And everybody's on board. They're like, yo, that's crazy. And now that turns to anger. Yo, they're doing this. Yo, fuck the enemy. They're doing this now. And then it's spreading. And then next thing you know, somebody from the enemy side infiltrates and is like, no, it's not like that. It's because of this. Now these people are getting in arguments with...
Because each is rigid in their own point of view.
Of course. And you know what? The enemy has facts to back up his point of view, facts on the internet that are completely contradictory, and they're both, and so now you got, because of the internet, each side with opposing views has facts backing up. So you're like, well, what the fuck? Each side has facts, so what, but the thing is, what I realized yesterday, all these people spreading this information, they're doing, other than spreading information, they're not doing shit about it, other than spreading the information, okay? So who's the enemy now? When I say people, you know, who's the enemy? The enemy is, in this scenario, the enemy could be Babylon system and the government enforcing vaccinations and other means, you know, to take control of people. Or the enemy could be the anti-vaxxers who are really fucking up shit for the people who are really trying to just get over this this COVID thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So both sides have an enemy.
Right, and both sides have tons of propaganda triggering emotions. Like, you know, when I tell people, you know, that I don't vax, they might come up with a bunch of stereotypes that they're going to throw on me all of a sudden that have nothing to do with me. But that's what the mainstream would tell them, like, oh, if you're not vaxxing, you're some stupid person or whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's the other way on the other way side too. So I'm just like, I'm just doing me, you do you, good vibes and love to everybody. We all got the same intention of wanting to be happy and free and do what we love.
Well, here's the thing, off of what you just said, what I realized, like, in my head and based off my little calculations, when I realized that all these people who are spreading this information and not doing shit about their problem other than spreading the information, I realized that 80%, I think like a good 80% of the population who has access to computers, 80% of that population is just spreading this fear-based information. And the funny thing is, side note, when you're in fear, that's exactly where the enemy wants you. The enemy wants you to be in fear and be like, hey, look at these guys. They're all really afraid of us right now, and they're spreading this info around, acting like they're doing something. They're not doing shit, but being on their fucking computer screens all day.
Seems like they're acting from a point of weakness.
They are. They are.
A position of empowerment.
And sorry to cut you off, but so that 80%, that's what they're doing. Then there's 10% who I think are acting from, they are trying to push their agenda. They are actually engaged in a battle. The 10% of the world are actually moving up with their things, whether it be one side or the other. They're actually engaging in some kind of battle that's actually going somewhere. Okay? I don't know who's going to win, but I think they're actually doing something. So like, let's say you could take the standpoint of the people who are fighting against the government. Like, they're actually proactively fighting against government and this system. Or there's the other people who are like fighting to try to win this war to just, in their view, make everybody safe again. They're actually fighting against the anti-vaxxers, and they're trying to, so there's 10% of the world that are actually fighting of actual battle.
Right, but living according to their ethics and beliefs.
Yes, but then they're living according to their ethics and their beliefs, and they're actually doing something to push their agenda. That's 10%. The other 10% are just closing the fucking computer and realizing how beautiful this life is, and choosing to not even give a shit what the other 90% are doing. And I kind of feel that that's where I am. So it's like, life is too beautiful to engage in any battle, whether it's a battle that's actually pushing an agenda or a battle that's going absolutely nowhere. Man, like, life is too beautiful. Like, I feed birds, I hang out with my cat. I like art.
You're like a granny.
I'm like a what?
A cool granny.
A cool granny. I'm a cool granny. But I mean, honestly, like, when I observe what's going on right now, I think that's my lane. I chose my lane. I got in where I fit in. This is where I fit. Some people fit in the lane where they need to boost their ego and anger and fear and go on the internet all day, and then they could go to sleep at night like, at least I spread that information, even though it's not going anywhere. They might feel good about that. I have a feeling they all feel like shit, but some of them might feel good about that. And then some people really like rioting in the streets, and they're fighting for their cause, and they might go to sleep feeling good about that. I like going to sleep with my cat after a day of feeding birds.
I agree, and I honor you for trying to find your personal peace. As I said before, it's about vibration, you know? Like, and I think to some degree it's good that we're aware what the quote unquote negative forces are doing from the, you know, from the shadows, so that we don't get tricked into, you know, parallel futures that might not agree with us. So it's good to like be like, oh, actually, no, I don't want this passport. Thank you very much. And that's where we gotta see like, can we sign a petition? Can we protest? Can I discuss with the waiter at the restaurant who's not letting me in? Like, what do I do? Or do I leave town and go to a place where it allows me to be the way I want, because I don't want to fight anybody. So I ask you, you just want to close the computer and cuddle with your cat. But what if you want to go out on a date with a girl at a restaurant and you're not allowed anymore?
I mean,
it's hitting you in the face. You can't close that computer.
You can. I mean, here's the thing. When they talk about, here's the thing. Like, I think that's completely fucking ridiculous that I can't do that. But I don't want to come at this through too much of a, I don't want to
take a side.
Well, no, I don't want to come across extremely passive and whatever happens, happens, man. Like, I don't want to like come across too much like that, although that is a big part of me. But when I see what they deem as non-essential services, to me, they're not very essential. Like, as long as I can get food, like, why the fuck should I go spend my money at some restaurant that, like, I mean, but I like to support my friends who do have restaurants, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a tricky balance, but like, a lot of this shit is not essential. I do worry about travel.
Yeah.
Because I love traveling. Ultimately, this is like a whole other conversation. Ultimately, we as humans, it's one of the goals of mine to not let anything external affect my internal. So if I get thrown in prison for the rest of my life, I want to be able to be completely cool with that. So forget about flying to India.
Right.
Like when my goal is to sit in a cave somewhere or in prison and completely be cool with it, that's my goal.
Right.
I don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
But
that's like the ultimate shitty thing that could happen to a human while it's still alive.
It is. So yeah, so here's the thing. It's like I would love to be able to say that not being able to fly somewhere does not affect me. I'm not at that level of like spiritual guru sit in the middle in jail and be happy with it. I'm not at that level. I mean I just hope that everything, and I know this is going to make a lot of people mad who say that we have to like fight for our rights for this, but I'm just hoping that this will blow over and that eventually I will be able to travel. And I know a lot of people say, oh, your compliance is part of the problem. Maybe, but I mean, as long as you're...
I think it's
so
vibration.
tricky, man.
The battle is in vibration.
Yeah,
so if you're
so right.
If you're vibing good, Maysr, you're doing good. At least in my point of view of what reality is about.
Yeah.
If you're happy and you're at peace and you're optimistic about the future, you're helping attract that positive future.
I think
And
you're
yes,
right.
sometimes we do have to be proactive in this physical realm we're at. But if that proactivity ruins your vibe, then that's not proactive and actually, you know, everything's emptiness. You know, there's just emptiness and consciousness working through it. So it's important that our consciousness is, you know, in tune with the world we want to bring forth.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're really right about that. And to be honest, my vibration is, I'm completely content with it. You know?
Great. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Is there some final words of wisdom you'd like to share with our viewers before we sign off?
Yeah, sure. I just brought this up with somebody yesterday too. So, and it has a lot to do. One time I was in India and I asked somebody, I saw this sadhu by the side of the Ganges. He was living in garbage, right? And I look at this guy and I'm like, and I asked him, I'm like, are you happy? And he says, happy, sad, same. Life is life, God is God. And I was like, wow. I'm like, I gotta get to that point.
Everything is everything.
Everything is everything. Life is life. Happy, sad, same. It's like happy. He said, happy, no happy, same. I'm not trying to tell people to not be happy.
But accept it when it does happen.
Except not being happy.
Mm-hmm.
They say that, what is a Ram Dass thing? He says, quiet your mind, open your heart, and make friends with suffering. The making friends with suffering is very key. Don't try to engage with suffering, but when suffering comes your way, make friends with it, because it's going to happen. And if you're cool with it, and when happy, no happy, same happens, and you're cool with that, you're on fire. You're unstoppable. You have a superpower. So I think those two things, happy, no happy, same, life is life, God is God, and make friends with suffering, you're going to be good. You're good. Life is beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
so much, man.
My
I
man.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
That was a beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for watching another episode of Chris Dyer's Creative Friends. Hope you enjoy this beautiful man here and the great things he had to say. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, press stars and shit. And
one more thing.
Yeah.
My YouTube channel.
Yeah, his YouTube channel. Check it out.
Yeah, my YouTube channel. Just This with Maysr. It's just this. It's me doing things. All types of things. Just This with Maysr. Chris is going to put a link in the description down there.
Woo! Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next episode. Blessing! Next episode, my guest will be Stella Strajsowska.
I first experienced what meditation was, and I had never understood it. It was like, I just thought it was somebody just sitting and breathing. But like I had I'll give you an example. One of my experiences where I just kept breathing away tension until there was no tension left, and all of a sudden I entered silence. And I had never heard silence before. I was like, oh my God, this is what meditation was. And it like changed my whole world. Then a light came out of the sky and came down to me. It was like, are you ready to be part of the light? And I was like, fuck yeah. And there was like angels and Buddhas dancing in the clouds, right?
So please make sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Big thanks, and see you next episode. Peace.